So this is an easier way for us to go over the class without me having to drive all the way down there or have you drive all the way down here. Sorry it's not the greatest quality, but hopefully you have the download that I will be referencing. So under Texas state law, trainers with an approved organization cannot be denied access to public facilities. So that includes restaurants, grocery stores, anywhere that people are selling things to the general public. People who are training service dogs should be allowed. So that is under Texas law. Under federal law, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, that covers individuals with disabilities. So trainers are not included in this. So it's state by state, depending on what your laws cover and what you're allowed to do as a trainer. So in Texas, we're allowed to have the same access as individuals with disabilities using a service dog to mitigate their impairments. So that's just what that Texas state law, HB 489, you'll have cards on you to hand over if you ever have an access issue. And you can always call me if you do. So our rules are we do not allow the dog to ever have any people food, meaning they don't get fed from the table, and we also don't give them leftovers from food or table scraps, because a lot of times it's nasty stuff. A lot of foods that dogs can't have are going to be mixed in there. So onions, grapes, citrus, all that kind of stuff that dogs can't have is usually in people food. So just avoid that. We don't mean if you like using like maybe chicken chunks and you cut them up and stuff, we don't mean you can't use that kind of stuff. It just has to be approved, and you'll get the hang of it once you see what we're using. So we don't allow dogs on the furniture because we don't know that their future handler may or may not want to have their dog on the furniture. And it's much easier to break a habit versus trying to teach them from the start that they can or cannot go on the furniture. So it's a lot easier to undo the training versus start training after the fact that they've been used to using the furniture. We never ever play with laser pointers because it has shown to cause a lot of obsession, like a compulsive disorder with a lot of dogs. They start to follow shadows in lights and stuff. So especially if we're giving the dog to someone who may be in classes where they use laser pointers and stuff, we don't want a dog going after it. So it's not a good form of exercise, and it's definitely something we do not use with our service dogs. So no laser pointers. We also don't want to encourage tug of war until later on. So that's probably going to be my job. So if it is very much on command and the dog can release the item when you say give, then it might be okay to teach tug of war. But at this time, I recommend not doing that. No rough housing with the dog. We're actually very lax compared to a lot of the other organizations that don't allow the dog to play whatsoever. So take advantage of that. Play other ways. And the dog must sleep in the kennel. And it's up to you where they sleep, if they're in your room or outside the like living room or something, but wherever you choose, eventually you do need to switch the location so that they're used to it everywhere and can relax in their kennel anywhere. And jacket rules. So our service dogs are not allowed to go in public without us saying they're okay to. So you will learn jacket privileges in levels. So depending on your ability and your dog's ability, we may grant privileges based off of each level. For example, first level would be you can go to a local store like Target as many times as you'd like, but that's your first. You get one like grocery store type thing that you can attend. Then it might be several grocery stores you can attend. Then it might be school, grocery store, and blah, blah, blah. And then everything minus restaurants until that dog has a really good leave it and can walk by food just laying on the ground without being tempted to eat it. So last stage would be all access, and you'll learn this each stage. It's in the manual. We'll give you the privileges as you go. We do recommend that the dog is socialized as much as possible, though, in the beginning weeks. So from up to about 4 months, we want them to have a diaper on, not eat anything off the floor, but being introduced to people of all different shapes and sizes, and everything you can think of item-wise, wearing hats, masks, bringing a trash can, all that kind of stuff is very important. All different dogs, animals, environments. So there may be some exceptions during that time, but until we know that you're able to handle the dog in public with everyone staring at you, we want to do this step by step with you. So we never let strangers just barge their way up. We're talking about once the dog has their service dog jacket on, just barge their way up and pet the dog. It's actually not a good thing to allow people to pet the dog anyways, because you don't want people to assume that it's okay to bug people that are using a service dog to help their disability. So we always want to reinforce people that ask to pet beforehand. So if they ask politely, you can say, this is a service dog in training. Sure, you may pet them if they are listening to me. It's actually best to say, if they are listening to me, you may pet them, so that they don't hear yes and go immediately towards petting. If the dog's not behaving, we don't want to reward them with petting. So you always want to represent us well and make sure the dog is always under control and never causing a scene. So if they are, you need to leave the situation and then come back. So if you're in class, the dog starts to have a fuss or bark, you need to leave the room and recoup them and come back. If the dog continues to do that, you might have to actually leave the classroom and have someone else take the notes for you. You have to be respectful of everyone else. And I will get back to the gear and equipment, I guess. This might be a couple videos, but here's a start.